This is Jody Lemieux, your host to the Spiritually Aligned CEO podcast, and you're listening to Conversations with Jody, your one divine guidance system, giving your mindset and business a spiritual facelift by tapping into energy, gaining inspiration, and up-leveling your life by unleashing your infinite potential. On today's episode, I have with me Noémi, and I'm so grateful that she's here joining us today because she's going to be talking about the healing power of art. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on your show, Jody. I really appreciate it.
So, as a collage artist, as well as the co owner of Podcast Connections, we're here to talk about art, the healing modality of art. And so, as a collage artist, please share with us a little bit about what your experience has been with art and the process of healing yourself.
That is a great question. Thank you. Um, Unfortunately, I lost my dad and my grandmother in 2019. My dad to cancer and my grandmother to an accident, and it was like a huge shock to the system, and it was really hard to deal with. Obviously, there was grief, and then came 2020 and COVID-19 hit, and I basically lost the business I was working for within since 2007. So it was a really hard 2 years going on, like 2019, 2020, COVID going on. My grief was on, uh, was I was all over the place, and I just discovered that I was always an artistic type person since I was a teenager. I'm a self-taught artist. I never went to university. I went to university, but I studied Scandinavian linguistics. So it has nothing to do with art, but I always loved creating something. And so here I am, 2020. I need to figure out something because I don't want to watch the news because I'm not interested in that. And it was just stressing me out. So I started to basically recycle, upcycle my old paintings. I used to paint a lot, but then I stopped doing it. And it was so interesting because we had no supply or we couldn't go to the shop. So I was just taking apart my old paintings, and I started to, repurpose them and make collages. And every single evening, I was in bed, didn't watch the news. I was listening to my favorite music, or also, like, I love audiobooks. I'm a bookworm. So I was listening to these and I started to work on my collages, and I was in the zone. I didn't care with the rest of the world. I didn't care with online schooling, nothing, no, not with the business, but I just started to create collage after collage every single evening. And that was the way, and that was how I discovered that this is actually working. It's so soothing, it's so relaxing, it's like some form of meditation is going on when I'm in the zone and when I'm creating collages, that if it helps me, it can help other people. So I figured that, like, maybe I should do a course on this. So I completed a course on positive psychology and art therapy, and it was very fascinating. And because I'm in the podcast guesting industry, I figured out, let's do a couple of interviews, and I want to be on podcast and tell people to create art because it will help them.
This is so beautiful because what you just expressed, feelings of grief in 2019, and then when COVID descended upon the world in 2020, you talked about stress. You talked about the news. You talked about what was being put out on the media was of a negative form. And so you recognize the correlation between grief and worry and stress, and that it was just cycling for you in a way that you're like, no, 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 we're stopping this right here. We're allowing this to stop with me. And you turned it off. And what you turned on was the stillness within you. As you said, you turned on music that you enjoy listening to. You actively went into an activity of listening to music that brought you to a place of enjoyment, a place of joy. And through that activity, your artwork that you had put aside for a few years was, an opportunity for you to passionately get into that enjoyment of life and joy and expression. This is incredible. When did you notice the correlation between grief and worry and then shifting into joy and happiness through your art?
It was an ongoing process. I can't remember the exact moment, but I felt more relaxed. I felt, more in peace with myself and peace with the world. When I was thinking about my relatives who passed away, I was more in peace with them too. Obviously, grief is an ongoing process, so it will never stop, but it will change. And yeah, it was really an ongoing process for me, and it was a beautiful process to notice that, like, wow, this is working, this is actually working. And you don't need like self-medication, you don't need like unhealthy habits, drinking or anything like that, to help to ease your pain. You only need art or music. I also love creating music. I'm not a professional musician by any means, but I have a hang and also have a frame drum. And when I feel like, I just play on them because it's so joyful, and it really helps to release stress and anxiety. It's also a good place to get into and escape when you feel like. So everything, like anything, like music, art, it's perfect, and books.
So, if someone is listening that's experiencing grief or worry and they're just cycling in these feelings, what piece of advice would you offer them?
You don't need to be an artist to create art, because some people misunderstand this. It has to be perfect because I have to show it to people. You don't need to do anything. You just create art. You can scribble, you can paint, you can crochet, you can knit, you can do anything you want, as long as it gives you inner peace and you are in the zone. It will help you to relax. It doesn't really matter. That's like, don't worry about it and enjoy the journey. That's what I did when I was creating collages. Like, I preferred just going on and enjoying every second of the journey. And when something was finished, I was sad. It's like, oh, but then I was so excited that, like, okay, I can start a new project, a new collage. So enjoy the journey, and don't care about anyone else says about your artwork. You don't even have to show it to anyone. It's for you. It's for your only eyes.
What a beautiful piece of advice is to be in that place of play, enjoy the journey. And I feel though, as for myself, I'm going to speak for myself. There may be others out there that can identify with this as well. We're adults and we're told to be adult like. We're told to, just move forward in life. Don't play, don't do this. And I'm like, wait, what? Where is the joy in being an adult? And so I love that you just said, just be in a place of joy and playfulness and just let go of the perfectionism. Let go of all the expectations that you've put on yourself and just be. Allow this fun, playful experience to unfold for you, whether it's art, or whether it's music, dance, however the expression for you is. I agree with you. Stay in that and allow it to just to be and to come from
Yeah.
that heart center.
Yeah, it was a funny story about that, because my mom visited us during COVID. Like, that's the beginning, and there were no flights. There were no flights back to my home country, to Hungary. So basically, she was stranded here in Cyprus, like for 2 months with us, which wasn't easy for her or for anyone. And I knew that she's stressed out. She wants to go home, but she can't. Obviously, she loves her own place, own space, everything. And I found one of my mandala coloring books, and I got it as a gift, but I don't really like coloring mandalas. It's not my thing. So I just gave it to her. It's like, Mom, these are like color pencils, mandala. Just get going. And I don't know, she finished the whole book while she was here. Obviously, so she was really stressed out, but it was so like beautiful to see that, like, every single day when I know she was like anxious and everything about like what's going on at home and what's going in the COVID world. and I didn't let her to watch the news either. So I just told her, just color your mandalas. It will help. And she told me, it's like, it actually did. And she really enjoyed the process. And even she asked my son, her grandson, to join her. So it was fun for sure, because art is fun. You have to treat it as fun. It doesn't have to be serious.
And what is beautiful here in this discovery is the power that art has on your thoughts. It
Hmm.
allows your thoughts to go. It allows your thoughts to dissipate. And
Yeah.
what comes in is that playfulness and in that joy and in that moment. And if we can just talk a little bit more about emotions and feelings and how our emotions and feelings, if we allow them to, will control our thinking and take us to a deeper place of worry
Yeah.
and anxiety. When we can transform those thoughts and feelings in artwork or in dance, we let those thoughts and feelings go for a brief period of time. And that's when joy comes in and fun comes in and playfulness. And so I love how you beautifully explain that experience with your mom and your son, and how just transforming those emotions was so powerful for her.
Absolutely. And art, no matter how disturbing your art may be to others, because I remember I had a phase when my dad was in transition. I was with him back home in Hungary, and I started to make these digital collages, because I make paper, digital and hand-sewn collages on canvas. But I was sitting with him, I was next to him, and I started to make these digital collages, and they were very dark, like normally black and white or gray or whatever, because that's how I felt. I needed to express my emotions, but it was a safe space for me, because if you don't get it out of your system, you just piling up. It just gets bottled up inside of you, and that's not a healthy and safe space to be. And yeah, and those collages were very dark. And if someone would see that time, probably they thought, it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on with her? And I showed it to my friends, I shared it on social media on my artist pages, and yeah, and they were a bit, yeah, gobsmacked, when they saw these collages. And yeah, they knew that there was something very wrong with me, but it was a safe space, and it helped me to get it out of my system.
And I love what you said there, because it's so powerful to realize it's okay to have these feelings of sadness, of grief.
Yeah.
Um, it's to bring them up, to really see them for what they are. They're just feelings and emotions. They're you are something different from your thoughts and feelings. You are the one witnessing them. So if you can witness and express them in a healthy, safe space of whether it be art, however, your expression of your feelings and emotions in a safe place, to move it, to bring in something of love and light and beauty. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the completion of an art piece. Where you talked a little bit about your mom finishing the book, and then you talked a little bit about the dark images of when your dad was transitioning. Share with me the understanding of why it's important to complete a piece of artwork.
Because it gives you satisfaction. I mean, it's so amazing when you finish something. It improves your self-esteem. So you prove yourself that, yes, I'm capable of doing that. And it's an amazing feeling, and it definitely boosts your self-confidence and self-esteem. And seeing a finished piece of artwork can really bring up joy and a sense of accomplishment and pride. It's wonderful. And I usually, it's not like bragging, but I like my collages. It's funny, because some people, I know there are so many artists, and they are never satisfied with what they create. There's always something to make it better, make it nicer, make it whatever. But I was happy with them, because the things that I created, they were part of my childhood. So I incorporated like childhood photographs, or um, anything, like even my one of my piece of clothing that I was wearing as a kid. and my mom brought it home for me from Canada, and it was like a lovely summer dress. And I took it apart and I incorporated and sew it together, my memories with all these, fabrics and old photos and postcards. So for me, that was so close to my heart. It was so private, and I would never sell them. And these are just, for me, and I can show it to the world. But I would love to keep them because they are very important to me.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that. Bringing pieces from your childhood to create art today. I love that. I love that expression of life, a completion. And so this is beautifully segueing into your podcast connections business, because I'm sure you have some people that are creating podcasts, that are being guests on podcasts, and they may have some hesitation in completing a project, or they get really inspired to start it, and then there's some sort of emotion that comes up, and then they feel defeated, and then they allow that emotion to take over, and then they stop a project. So this conversation beautifully segues into business too. People who are entrepreneurs or business startups, there's a space in the creation of it where it may feel messy. Artwork is very messy. You get paint everywhere. You're cutting pieces of cloth to put on your artwork.
Yes.
It's in the completion of it, see it through. So share with the audience a little bit about your understanding of your podcast connections and how that just segues beautifully into a completion of a project.
It's about business, life, art is all about creativity. I mean, you have to be creative to work in a business and to figure out new things for your business and to serve your customers and to help your clients. It's really important to be creative and to have creative thoughts. And I think that's the main core. And also being consistent and persistent, whatever you do in business, art, life, it applies everywhere. You just have to stick to these things and keep going and just keep doing them.
Oh, that's so beautiful. How can people reach out to you if they're looking to get connected on podcast connections, or hear more about collage artwork? How can people reach out to you?
They can visit my website, which is the podcast booking agency website, Podcast Connections, plural.co and not co. And you can always find me on LinkedIn. If you just type my name in, Noémi Beres, I'm there. There's a microphone sign next to my name, so that's me. I also have a website, which is my name. It's noemiberes.com, where you can see most of my paper collages that I made in the past. That's the way to reach out to me.
Noemi, thank you so much for joining me today. What last piece of advice would you like to leave the listeners with today?
My motto in life is just three simple words that you can stick to it in life. And I actually just mentioned that before. Just keep going. Whatever happens, just keep going and be persistent and consistent in whatever you do in life and business.